I want to welcome back Natasha Josefowitz. We are continuing our interview. The first part was on Natasha's book, Living Without the One You Cannot Live Without. Welcome back. Natasha has been researching grief and has come across, is it 7 stages of grief?
Yes.
Okay. And so we're going
I didn't come across. So let me just talk about this a minute. Do you remember Elizabeth Kubler-Ross?
Yes.
This is 35 years ago. She wrote a book called The 5 Stages of Grief. Now, actually, she meant it to be for people who were dying. And the media took it for people who were grieving. So it helped somewhat, because I believe that if you put a name to a feeling, then at least you don't feel crazy. You say, oh, this is what I'm going through. And so I think her book was incredibly helpful. And she was the first to really talk about grief and put it out there for everybody to talk about it and not say, oh my God, it's something we never mentioned. And so I worked with her 35 years ago. First of all, when my husband lost his son, we saw her professionally several times. And then I went and joined her group. And it was fantastic. I mean, it was an incredible experience. But this is 35 years later, and no one has come up with anything new. And so, because I interviewed 50 people who had had recent losses, I came up with a somewhat different set. What I called it the 7 emotional states of grief. I tell you why I don't say stages, because these are not, well, they're somewhat linear, but they don't have to be linear. In other words, you may go through one and then not another, then you may recycle, then you may go back to something before, or you may not go through any of them, or may go some that I don't even know about. And so it's fluid. But what it does help is for you to recognize when you are in one of these states, oh, this is what's going on with me. I understand. I'm not crazy. And so there's also the 7 states of healing after each of these states of loss. So let me start with one which the media really has not looked at. And that is what I call pre-loss. This is when someone has been a caregiver for sometimes years, and then the person dies. And so, in a way, you think you should be ready, and you're not. You're never ready to face loss, no matter how prepared you are and how ill your loved one has been for how many years. So the first state I call shock. No matter when a person has died, it is shock. So you're in shock, and what happens? You have the funeral, you have all the people who come to grieve with you. You have to think about the relatives and what they're going to eat and where they're going to stay. And so you're in shock, and you're going through this like 1 hour at a time, kind of like a zombie. But then when that gets better, actually it doesn't get better, it goes to a different state. It goes to a state I call numbness. A lot of people have said to me, this is so strange, I feel nothing. I don't feel like crying. I just feel nothing. And this is this numbness stage. And I think maybe what the brain does, it saves us from terrible, terrible pain. And so after numbness, there is a strange stage, which is, I call disbelief. In other words, the phone rings, you think it's him. Or you hear some steps in the hallway, it's her. It still happens to me. Something happens to me. I want to call my mother, and she died 20 years ago. So it's a disbelief that this is what is going on. And then, so one of the things I wrote about disbelief, because I kind of felt, come on, Herman, do something. And so I kept thinking, it's all a mistake. It wasn't real. It's a bad dream. It didn't happen. He will be here tonight when I come home. So there's all these things that come up. Well, after disbelief, you finally go to reality. And reality is maybe the most painful state of all, because you realize you're alone. This is it. And his absence is now forever. And so one of the things that I wrote about There is this overpowering awareness of his forever absence, and there is no one to turn to, nowhere to go, no getting away, no possible refuge, no stopping the pain. It sits there enveloping me, and I'm helpless in its grip, contemplating with awe the immensity of how much pain one can bear without dying from it. And the one thing I have to say is that no matter how horrible the pain, it does get better. We do survive. So you think you're going to get better. You think alienation is not going to happen, and it does. Alienation is when you are into this reality and you decide, well, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do things, and you are alone in a world of couples. And that is really, really difficult. And you have to get yourself out of your chair, and you have to get yourself out of the house, and you have to go, and it's very difficult. So one of the things you need to do is to go with someone. And I think I've said that before. I've said it. You go with someone you don't even like. Just don't be alone. And one of the things that I wrote is that you feel like a stranger among the natives, an alien in a foreign land. That is how you feel. And then after you really make these efforts, you decide, well, the next step is called reinvention. You have to reinvent yourself. You have to reinvent yourself like an okay single person and not half a couple. And so you wonder how it is you're going to do that. And the way you're going to do that and stand on your own 2 feet is that it's one day at a time. You go everywhere, you do everything, and eventually your brain will understand it's okay, you can do this. And sometimes it's very painful. But as long as you keep doing it and you don't give up, the worst thing you can do is stay in bed and put your covers over yourself and say, I'm not doing this. You have to. You have to. And after the reinvention is the new normal, which is where I am today. The new normal is being an okay person without your spouse. And that is where you, at the end of the journey, you end up being okay. Some people are more resilient than others, and I do want to say something really important. No one can tell you how long you should grieve. No one can tell you, you're moving on too quickly, or it's time for you to move on. And people have their own ideas of how it is everybody else should do it. It doesn't work. So don't listen to everybody else's opinions of what you should be doing. You know in your heart when you're ready and when you're not ready. And listen to your heart, listen to your gut, listen to your brain, and do what you feel you need to do. So I want to read to you my poem called Amazing, which is the new normal. Today, I have decided I'm not a half couple, mourning the one that's gone, for I have integrated him within me, and so I'm a whole person, standing on my own 2 feet, independent and strong. There is nothing I cannot do, for there is nothing I cannot imagine. I have no fears, not of living, nor of dying. I'm doing the first the best I know how, until the second stops me, hopefully in my tracks. I feel the wisdom of my years, a learning that I can use well to make it easier for others. By the way, Barbara, you know, it's really incredible for me that this book that I wrote for myself has really helped a lot of other people. And so this is my journey that draws to an end. I savor the moments in ways new to me. A quietness has taken hold, like a new distance, a perspective, an understanding, I know not exactly of what. A comfort in my place, the knowing of my time. The word may be serenity. It exists even in your adventures. In willingness for risks, in shoulder shrugs at failures, in smiles at foibles, in secret laughter at the amazingness of it all. Because it is amazing. It is amazing that one can get through this as a whole person. There is something that the literature also doesn't turn to, and that is what I call post-grief. So most people, when they get to the new normal, they still have a few glitches. You know, there's an anniversary, there's a birthday, there's a holiday, and it's things. As you get back, there's a little pain. But normally you just go on. But then there are people who don't go on. There are people who stay stuck. And these people need help because something is wrong. And what is wrong is that, well, in psychology, we call it secondary benefits. In other words, when the behavior doesn't match up what you expect to be normal, then you wonder, there's a reason for this. There is a reason why people are stuck. What do they get out of it? Is it a poor me? I'm a victim, and so people will pay attention to me, and the kids will come, and I won't be left alone. If I'm too healthy, people will forget me. And I'm not saying that this is what it is. I'm saying there is some kind of a benefit, unconscious, that people get for not moving on. And so these people need help to uncover what it is, because something is keeping them stuck. So I tell you what I'm doing, which is I'm kind of in the middle of wondering about this. This could be my 21st book. I don't know. I'm thinking of writing. I have this thick research on grief and healing. And so this could be my 21st book would be called The 7 Emotional States of Grief and Healing. So I'm thinking of writing this book that I'm just talking about to you. What do you think? Do you think there should be, do you have an opinion?
Do I have an opinion? Of course I do. I feel, and we talked about this last time, that the more knowledge, the more people talk about this process, the healthier we're all going to become, because it's something that we ignore. It's very taboo. People are afraid of it. So yes, I do think that you should write the book and write many books on this subject, because we need to become comfortable and familiar with the opposite of birth, which is death. It happens for us all. So it's something that we should, have conversations about. And I think we be prepared for, almost like motherhood. There are certain things that we really should be educated about more and discuss more, and not take it for granted. Oh, have a child and it's okay, there's no knowledge, or someone's going to get sick, somebody's going to die, whether it's you or someone else. So it's something that I feel is very, very necessary.
There isn't anyone who is on this planet Earth that is not going to experience loss. But I want to say something more. I have concentrated on people in my age group, 88, who experience loss. I tell you why. Because people in my age group, well, their parents are dead, obviously. The kids are mostly moved away, or they have their own lives. We're not workers anymore. And so we have a kind of a loss of identity. We don't have any ongoing activities the way we did when we were young. I mean, somebody loses a spouse in their 30s or 40s. Well, they have kids, they have a lot of friends, they have a job, they have resources. And so I was curious to see in my age group what people can do, because it's harder. We had longer marriages. But I also want to add, this isn't just loss of a spouse. This is also loss of anything. Loss of a job, loss of a community, loss of a home. I want to talk to you about something that has not been in the media, and that is what I call the dopamine fix. Okay, every time a spouse kind of pats you on the shoulder, or smiles at you, or waves at you, or writes you a little note, you get something which is called a dopamine fix. In other words, it makes you feel good. Dopamine is a drug. When you're in a relationship, you get drug addicted to dopamine. And when people have a pet, dog, or every time your pet comes out, sits on your lap, or you pet it, or you have some kind of relationship with your pet, you get a little dopamine fix. You get a little feeling good. Pet dies, you're on drug withdrawal. And people who never had a pet don't understand this. People say, oh, well, your dog died, get another dog. It doesn't work, because you are on a drug withdrawal from the pleasure you had from this particular animal. And so if you have a friend who's lost a pet, take it very seriously. And so you miss all of these other losses. So our life is made up of losses. I mean, every time you move to a new community, it's a loss. Every time you change jobs, it's a loss. You know, it's a funny thing, I have to say. I was looking at an album of photos of my children when they were 4 and 5 and 6. And they're no longer here. The 5-year-old is no longer here. So it's a loss. The loss of youth, the loss of babies. I mean, you know,
Everything is,
and it's not a regret. It's kind of a nostalgic feeling of, and yet it is a wonder when we look back on our lives, what we went through, what we were able to do. And here we are, still surviving, still there, all of us, walking and talking, all of us, here we are. And so it's a celebration. It's a celebration that I'm here talking to you, and it's a celebration. This is the first time I'm Skyping. This is totally awesome. I really want to be part of this new tech generation, and so I find this huge fun. I'm waiting for great grandchildren, and then I'll be able to Skype the great grandchildren.
well, you have such a zest for life, but what you're saying is life is just a succession of endings and beginnings.
That's right.
And if we could also, at the same time that we become nostalgic, if we can stay in the moment and really absorb it, then I think that's a buffer for the nostalgia that could kind of sweep us, down a path that might kind of not feel so good. In other words, nostalgia is great as long as you don't feel that there is something missing in the present
right.
moment. So
That's right.
when you mention the dopamine loss, do you have any solutions for that?
Yes. The fact that I can say you're on drug withdrawal, what you're feeling is normal. You can't sleep, if you're exhausted all the time, if you cry a lot, if you're not eating or eating too much, or whatever it is that's going on, it is similar to any drug withdrawal. So, okay, where can you get the dopamine fix? So you have to think, what would give me this little fix? An ice cream cone, calling a friend, going for a walk, reading, go to a movie. I don't know. Everybody would have another way of it. What would give me a little kick right now? And that's what you do. And then you get a little bit of that drug.
I think that human touch is important, even if it means going to get a massage.
Massage is good.
I think that's important. I like Reiki. I like energy work. I like getting in touch with your body, because we tend to kind of be walking heads and we're thinking all the time, but our body needs nurturing. And you can volunteering at a shelter.
This is so important what you're saying, Barbara. There's an interesting research that if you volunteer, it only has to be once a week, but it has to be with the same organization. That's because you're part of a community. If you volunteer once a week, your immune system gets improved. And so, yes, get out and volunteer, do something for others. It's good for you.
Right.
It will make you live healthier and longer. It's good.
Right. It's so good. When people say, that's so nice what you're doing for someone, I would always say it's very selfish, because I feel so much better if I give to others. So it's a win-win.
And if you don't know where to turn to and how to find out, every telephone book at the first few pages has social services phone numbers. You call them and you say, where is volunteer needing? Is it in an orphanage? Is it with older people? Is it with some kind of an organization? Whatever. Think what interests you. It's also a time when I talk about reinvention. It's also a time to think, what is it, now that I'm an older person, for those of you who are older, what is it that I have dreams that have not been fulfilled? What is it I've always wanted to do but didn't have time because I had to earn a living or I had children at home? What is it that I still would like to do and haven't done? Something still to learn, somewhere still to go, somewhere still to meet. There's a whole world out there. Go there. I have a motto. This is a motto I've lived by. Identify the fear and then go there. And that's what I've done. And you know what? I'm doing it right now. I'm Skyping.
No, you're doing
I
a
was
great
really
job.
frightened. I said, "Oh my God, how do you do that?" And here we are.
And here
And
we
so,
are. Actually,
this is amazing. I'm
you did
Skyping.
better.
I'm happy.
You did better than me. And the other thing you mentioned is the importance of community and possibly
Yes.
getting to a community before you've turned a corner and it becomes overwhelming.
I'm so glad you're saying that. I live in a retirement community. It's called the White Sands, La Jolla. I live in La Jolla, in California. And we came here with my husband 9 years ago, both of us totally healthy. The reason we did it is we thought we have 5 children between us. No one's around. Anything happens to us, you become a burden to your children. We didn't want to do that. So we moved here where we were both healthy. And when he died 5 years ago, I was not alone. I have never eaten a meal alone. I go down the dining room. There's always people there that I me to sit with. And I'm a believer that as people go older, they should not live isolated. They should be in a community. It doesn't have to be a retirement community. You can form your own community wherever you live. There is something called a village where people, several homes, independent homes, people get together and decide who is a plumber, who can help, who needs a ride, who needs a doctor, who needs, in other words, you meet on a regular basis, all the people in this individual homes, and talk about what the needs of the community are. It's an interesting concept because we are much more isolated. I mean, my heavens, when I was growing up in Paris, France, my grandmother lived with us, my mother's sister lived with us. I mean, there were lots of people always around. And then we lived when we came here because of the war, Ellis Island, the whole bit, I'm an immigrant. When we lived together in a home with my father, my mother, my brother, my father's brother, his wife, their daughter, we all lived in one house.
But
So this doesn't happen anymore.
It doesn't, and we talked about that our culture is a youth-obsessed culture, so we even feel more uncomfortable with aging because in other cultures, the older you are, the more you're revered. Your wisdom is actually respected, and people seek that out. We've kind of gone in the opposite direction.
When you think of how old people are portrayed in television, little lady, silly little old ladies, and they talk like this, and they're all bent over. Nobody's portrayed as, I'm in my 90s, I'm 100, and I'm strong, and I feel good, and I'm wise, and I can give advice. No one does this. I know, we need to do this.
No, well, actually, you do that. You are vibrant, you're wise, you really have embraced life, and I think, the whole thing is that the intentions and the ideas, we kind of follow what we're told. So we should actually, if we're told that as we get older, we're wiser, we're more empowered, then we're going to actually feel better instead of shrinking into this, kind of paradigm that they tell us that we're supposed to.
Interesting. When people are asked how happy they are, people in my age group have better memories in terms of pleasure than younger people. We remember the better things in our lives. Younger people remember a lot of the problems. And so we say we are happier than a lot of younger groups, which is interesting. Yeah. So I'm happy. I'm remembering things. So, how are we? We done?
We are perfect. Thank you I want to thank you for doing this interview. I think that you're amazing. And so for me, you're an inspiration.
Well, you are amazing because you got me to do something I've never done before. I was really said, oh my God, I've never done this. And then, of course, I do it. And this is fun. I'm telling everybody, hey, everybody, go Skype. Go find friends who Skype, and then you can see each other. Then you can do stuff. You can show people things.
Yeah.
Look, I got a new necklace, or I got new earrings, or I got a new shirt. What do you think? I mean, you can do crazy stuff.
You can see your children, your children, your grandchildren. It's a way to stay close. I don't think it should be a substitute for actually the problem. Again, everything has, two sides. A lot of people don't connect physically because of this, but it definitely has its advantages. And so we'll keep talking, but I'm going to stop the interview, and I want to say thank you very much.
And thank you, T.
And how can people reach you? how can they find your books, Natasha? How can,
Yes, Living Without the my book is Living Without the One You Cannot Live Without, and you
Right.
can get it on Amazon.
okay, so
Both as
everything is on
Kindle
Amazon.
and a soft cover.
Do you have a website? Oh, you are
Huh?
do you have a website?
A birthday?
A website.
What'd you say?
Do you have
Oh,
a website?
Yes. NatashasWords.com.
Oh, okay, Natasha's
No
Words.
apostrophe. NatashasWords.com.
Okay, so
That's my
everybody,
website.
you can go and
By
find
the way,
out
my
more.
birthday is Halloween. I'm a certified witch.
Uh-oh, okay. Well, we're gonna follow your magic.